several things on the agenda. All of them are important, and we want to try and get through them all. So, but we are going to end the meeting at 6:15, whether we're through the agenda or not. So just keep that in mind. And I apologize ahead of time that if I step in and try to move the conversation forward and the agenda forward, that's, I don't want it to happen, but more likely it's going to. So I apologize ahead of time. First thing is ESCO. We have Mr. Brian Town on the call tonight. Jared, do you want to introduce and open that up and get Brian started?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. We have Brian Town and Adam Campbell, both from Constellation, here to present to the committee just a general overview of the ESCO projects and what possibilities we have for Indiana School District. We did a sizable project back in 2012, and since then, Craig Trout and I have met with a couple different ESCO companies here, and we've been educated on how ESCO projects have changed since then. And we wanted Brian and Adam to give the committee just a kind of an overview of what has changed as we look at some different projects across the district that may fall under an ESCO project. So I'll hand it over to Brian and Adam to educate us on what has changed since 2012 when we did our last one.
That'd be great. I appreciate that. And is someone going to pull up the quick presentation I pulled together to walk through? Jared?
Yes, I think I sent that to Randy, and I think he has that to pull up.
Excellent. What I'll do is I'll get going. We've only got a short period of time. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm going to be as brief as I can, but make sure I cover. If there are any questions that need, I'll say, reviewed after the fact, we'll make sure we get back to the Board of Education as well as administration. If we could go up to what I'll call the second slide, we don't need the cover slide at all. For some of the board members that aren't familiar, Constellation, we are part of Exelon, a Fortune 100 organization, primarily focused in energy and energy services. A couple of the highlights I put there with some stars. I don't want to get too busy on the slide. We're excellent at what we do, doing it for a long time. I personally have nearly about 30 years in developing projects for the K-12 marketplace, primarily under a GISA type program, not just Pennsylvania, but other states, if you will. Next slide, Jared touched on the GISA, or Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreement, that we did with you was roughly about $14 million, done in about 2012. And we accomplished and did a lot of good for the Indiana area school district. Wide range of improvements from heating, ventilation, air conditioning, energy management, lighting roofs, as well as I'll highlight the last one. As we are part of Exelon, we also sell electric and gas. We're currently your electric provider, and we were able to negotiate, on top of the energy savings for the work done, a lower rate for the district as well. And that's something obviously that we'll look to do moving forward with this next phase. And Adam Campbell is on the line, does the ongoing performance measurement review for you guys. So I'll credit Adam with the next slide. The question is always asked, well, we did a project with you. How was it performing? I thought this was the cleanest, quickest slide for tonight that shows you that every year from years 1 through year 6 that are reported, Constellation, obviously with great effort from Mr. Trout, as well as everybody there at Indiana School District, have been able to overachieve on the dollar saved. So the project is performing very well for the school district, and we're happy to hear that since we have a guarantee on those savings. As was mentioned earlier, next slide, what's changed in GISA? In Act 29 of 1996, was the first time the Commonwealth got into guaranteed energy savings programs. They were basically 10-year programs back then. Didn't yield a lot of benefit to you in the K-12 market space, but did allow some low-hanging fruit to get done, such as some lighting or maybe some general controls upgrades. And I'll say the marketplace more so than the companies for really pushing the Commonwealth along to extending that over the years to now being a 20-year term that expanded the energy and operational cost savings that could be used to fund a project. Most recently in 2016, the scope really broadened to allow us to accomplish more for you, or allow you to accomplish more with us as an energy service company. We used to be limited in the last bullet there to about 15% of non-energy related work on tops of these projects that could be done. That's modified. That's been changed now, that you can do more in that scope of work. School additions, upgrades to interior aesthetics, maybe it's a STEM laboratory, things of that nature, even site work, construct a new parking lot, maybe even a new stadium. That can be accomplished under a GIZA as well. On the next slide, I think I'm going to talk a bit about the areas that have been discussed preliminarily with you folks at Indiana. This is all discussion at this point in time. We don't know what a phase 2 would look like, but a lot of it is what you'll see on your deferred maintenance list and capital list that I'm sure you've reviewed in multiple meetings, from roofs to heating and air conditioning, energy management, dialogue about potentially upgrading electrical systems, from lighting, panels for safety, even reconfiguring some wiring to accommodate the needs that are ever growing in the district, from spot cooling, things of that nature. So I walked and talked with administration last week, put our eyes on the buildings to see how best we could accomplish that, and even went and took a look at Eisenhower, where you have some modular buildings under consideration for replacement. You also have some security vestibule configuration and modernization in office areas, as well as potentially maybe a complete expansion of the building. I know it's been dialogued in Indiana for a number of years. Pretty familiar with Indiana. My wife's from Indiana. My father-in-law still lives there, so I've kept fairly abreast on what you folks have been trying to do there in Indiana. And these are all things that could be considered under a phase 2 in some way, shape, or form. The question then becomes, Brian, well, how could these all be integrated? And I think the next slide kind of calls that out or shows that from a general overview standpoint. So on the next slide, you'll see GIZA energy related, because that's kind of where the legislation began of what's energy related and what could be done for 15% non-energy related. It's grown to that second box on the right, and I pulled out high school turf based on what I think it's going to cost to go ahead and do that. Depending upon the size of the GIZA, could be added in very easily. If not, much like the additional classrooms, if you get to that point over at Eisenhower, we'd be able under GIZA to engineer, procure, and construction manage that work, and obviously work with your architects on that if you should so desire. And I know that's a decision that you have working forward. We're not geared to go ahead and do, I'll say, enrollment studies long-term looking forward. If we did get into the aesthetics of the building and developing that in any way, shape, or form, even replacing the 4 modulars, we would engage with your architects to assist with that. I do believe that the modulars being removed and replaced would absolutely be a GIZA based on efficiency and the fact that they're separately metered out there at Eisenhower for you. So could be accomplished should the board desire and administration desire. So I think maybe legislation looked and said with PlanCon, I'll say going away. How can they help you? I think they expanded the legislation in the last revision to go ahead and do so. Constellation. We've talked about the history that we have had with you on the previous slides. Next slide, if you would. How I'll say the legislation has changed, and the benefits of Constellation doing a phase 2 for you. I gave some thought to this. How do we assist you the most? And I think this slide and the next slide kind of tie that together. A phase 2 would allow you to leverage phase 1 savings. In speaking with Marcia Larkin, our counsel, she said, an amendment to the contract, a simple 1-pager with a schedule of work to be done, as well as revision and savings, would probably be the easiest for you to, I'll say, get to the ball fast on a project, if you will, looking to accomplish this summer. That yields roughly, we're expecting about another $258,000 in funding. And if the contract is modified to go 15 to 20 years, we're going to free up over $2 million there, at least on previous cash flows that could be considered, as well as what will be determined as additional savings with additional scope of work. So speed to the ball. We know your buildings. It saves you in that process of doing an ad about 4 to 6 months. We provide your power. Recently, and I'm running short on time here, Beaver County, Pennsylvania, when we restructured their projects and worked on their electrical and gas, we were able to find them 14% additional gas savings in rate, as well as 7% in electric based on how we structured their demand profile. So we'd obviously look to leverage that for you as well, not just get the energy conservation measure savings, but also the commodity savings based on our expertise and being able to perform both of those services, utility as well as ESCO, in-house from Constellation. Couple additional quick benefits on the next page. No change orders. Our $14 million was delivered, no change orders. That's our commitment on our projects. Best value approach. You're not tied into low bid, but we do get competitive proposals on scopes of work and work with you to determine what the best fit is. Had a client recently pay a little more for controls than they could have, but they felt long-term their service would be better from that provider. So they weren't stuck with low bid. They knew what the numbers were and made an educated decision was the best value for them. That's I said the best part about Giza. I talked about speed to the ball. We can execute very quickly for you in developing a phase 2. Phase 1, if you will, there was a $25,000 investment grade audit fee. We know your buildings. We understand your buildings. We will not be having an investment grade audit fee to develop a phase 2 with Indiana School District. And last on that slide, savings will be guaranteed just as phase 1. So the board and the taxpayers are protected that the project will perform as promised by Constellation. Quick next step slide as I see it, that I see you going through. Answer any questions that you have tonight, maybe moving forward. I know you've got a jam-packed meeting. Work with your solicitor, talk with your solicitor about best way to structure a phase 2. I listed the 2 that our council pointed out that would probably be easiest. 1-page amendment with schedules on scope and savings to be attached to them. We then develop an investment grade audit agreement with you guys, probably quick 1-letter agreement saying we'll get back to you with these items in this period of time. And in developing that, as we did in phase 1, you'll then have the information at your fingertips to make that determination through development of what a final project would look like financially, as well as infrastructure-wise and benefit-wise for the school district and taxpayers. And then you vote yes or no on how you'd like to engage in that. And obviously, we'd assist in any funding mechanisms that you'd be looking at. We're very adept at that. I saw some of that on your agenda for this evening as well. But we're looking forward to being able to assist you in developing a phase 2, help you get things solved. I had listed one of the slides there, an eye on COVID. I saw some of that being discussed tonight as well. We're experts at that as well. And we're here to support Indiana School District, the board, taxpayers, as well as the children there attending school. So with that, I think I ran over by a couple, but I'd love to answer any questions if you'd like now, as well as in follow-up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Brian. That was very clear and concise. I understand that pretty well. I guess one comment and maybe a couple questions. One comment is that, because of the time of year we're in, there's a potential that we're going to, maybe only do one project next summer, and that's the East Pike roof. So I guess one question is that possible to do as ESCO? 2, we will use existing money, so we won't be borrowing. So does it still fit? And I forgot what the third one was, but go ahead.
That's fair enough. Typically, you'd get a better value out of what I'll call a combined project where you can drive more savings than just doing a roof. We look forward to entertaining that dialogue with you, but I think combining some additional energy savings beyond the small savings from roof would probably be the best impact for you. Existing dollars, not every client has to finance a project. They have existing dollars, capital. You can apply that as well as operating expenses to a project of this nature. So a new borrowing specific for this project is not required.
Okay, that's good. Committee members have any questions?
I'm not a committee member. I have a question, but I'm not a member.
Julia, go ahead, for goodness sake.
Mr. Town, that's fascinating, and the combined project. I mean, this is kind of stunning to me, but this is a very basic question. Could you please repeat the 15% rule? I'm not sure that I understood it completely.
Sure thing. Under the traditional Giza Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreement, a client can do 15% of project value that's not energy related. As an example, I've done football stadium bleachers, I've done, my computer just went to sleep, wake it up here.
Walter, could you mute?
I've done football stadium bleachers. I've done stadium lights that didn't have anything to do with saving energy, but they fell within that 15% of the total project. We could do a parking lot if it was within 15% under the core Giza without having to go the above Giza bid and spec route for you.
Okay, that helps. Wow, there's a lot of it. Then we have that. This opens up options for us, really.
Yeah,
Brian?
I agree, Julian. I think, we're under the time restraint tonight, but I wanted an overview of this at least tonight because we do have some things that we're talking about doing. So I think, possibility, Brian, we'd have you back here in the near future, hopefully, and discuss this further. Anybody else?
Yes, Terry. Brian, is there initial investment that we have to make in order to get you to focus here, or how does that work? How do we engage you in moving this forward?
I develop an investment grade audit agreement as simple as possible that says, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to start spotlighting on areas A, B, C, and D. We'd like to have a general direction from the Board of Education Administration, what we're focusing on, to help hone in on what a project would be for you. We charged $25,000 last time to do an investment grade audit. We already know what's been done in the buildings. We got a pretty good handle on that, and we can, I think, develop fairly closely, at least with what you have existing, to guide you as to what that project would be, so that we would not charge you to go ahead and focus on doing that. What I will say is we're not the right choice to go ahead and work with you on determining if you're going to be expanding the building by building, 15, 20 classrooms at Eisenhower, adding a second story, things of that nature. But I think with that dialogue, we can be very clear or get clear with administration and the board as to where I think our break point would be on that. The 4 modulars in the back, great, no problem. Security vestibule out front, Eisenhower, no problem. Even invite you down to Ligonier Valley School District to see the work we did down there, roughly about $12 million that incorporated that. So we're here to work with you, get that done, and help you get things accomplished.
Brian, the initial cost though is going for the audit. Is that something you can determine? And I also want to bring up the junior high school, which we kind of steered you away from on the first pass through here. In that audit, will you go through all the existing buildings and take a look and make a proposal on what you think we can do and save? Is that how this works?
That is correct. There is no fee. That will include the junior high school, as well as some of the additional items on the other page that I talked about, such as the HVAC there at admin, controls over at East Pike, just to name a couple that come to the top of my head.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we can engage you to get started on this, and you come back with suggestions, and we figure out what we're doing.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And as part of that dialogue back and forth with you about what can and can't be accomplished, I think on a recurring basis to develop the best project for you that makes the best sense for Indiana Area School District.
Well, their phase 1 was highly successful. And I congratulate you for the phase 1, and hope we can get you into phase 2, and no reason to not save some money.
That's excellent, and I'll make sure that the operations team knows that. They're the ones that make these successful. I'm glad Adam's on the line.
Walter?
Yeah, Terry. One question for you, Brian, and then a suggestion. My technical question is, I'm not so sure how much insulation there is actually at the East Pike roof, and so the question is, if we significantly increase that insulation before we put the new membrane, whatever that membrane would be, on top of it, how does that impact this? Does that then up the energy savings, give us a little more money to work with in the savings? I understand it increases the total cost of the project, but that's my question there.
Insulation does provide savings. I'm doing about a $3 million roof at Beaver County right now, where we incorporated additional insulation in that. That's going to be installed probably starting, I'm thinking next spring's my guess right now on that. I can't give you what that would be. That would be up for my engineers to do. I'm an IUP marketing grad with 30 years. They're the ones that run the calcs for us, though. But we would definitely do that.
Okay, and then my suggestion is, on that one slide where you talked about the 258,000 and the 2.2 million, I'm going to, at the risk of raising the ire of our vice chair and chair of the finance, I think perhaps we should have a little more detailed discussion, not tonight, but at her committee meeting, to get a better understanding of how those dollars would actually flow into and out of the district, and how we can take advantage of, and what those advantages are.
Excellent point. And real briefly, you'll see projected on each of those slides for those numbers. We took a stab at what we think it's going to be because we haven't saved them yet, obviously. But that's a dialogue as to how best that's going to fit for you guys and how you account for that and utilize that. But we feel comfortable right now from talking internally that we'll be able to, I'll say, expand and potentially increase our guarantee to you on top of the other savings that are driven out of additional scopes of work that are performed. That I see as being a true benefit to Indiana School District. We can capture that for you.
Yes, sir. But my point is that we need to understand how that, some of the mechanics of how that's actually going to work. And again, that's above this committee, but or the scope of this committee. It's not above the committee, but it's above the scope. But I think that's something the finance should take a look at.
And we'll absolutely work with them on that. Thank you. Excellent point.
Anything else from anybody?
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks a lot, Brian. I think,
Everybody.
I apologize again for the short time, but I think this was a good kickoff meeting. I think there's some interest, so we will talk about this further at both Julia's Audit and Finance Committee and then back in this committee also. And Walter, that's why I wanted to have this presentation tonight, continue to have it still because of the pipe roof and the possibility of adding more insulation and stuff too. So I think there's, might be some benefit here. So thanks. I'm going to move on to number 2.
Harry, before you leave, can you can Brian make his slides available for us?
Well, Jared has them. So
Okay, so will they be
he
posted?
can share them with us. Yep.
Perfect. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
I'd
you.
like to see those.
Okay, number 2 is going to take about a minute and a half. We did not have enough time prior to this meeting to totally define a scope of work yet for the architect for the Eisenhower. So we're going to push this off to early January for further discussion. So next January building grounds meeting. So we can move on to number 3, bond refinancing option. Jared?
Yes, sir. On the full board meeting tonight, PFM, our financial advisors, will be doing a brief presentation to the full board about some refinancing options available on really 3 different bond issues we have. And I sent that information earlier to the board, kind of their presentation that they'll be covering tonight. So I don't want to take up too much time here in the finance committee because Jamie Doyle will be doing the full presentation later on to the full board. But it does give the district the opportunity to save right around $66,000, mainly in this year, in 2021, without really pushing the debt any longer than it already is. It's refinancing part of the 2012 and 2013, which was the ESCO debt for the ESCO projects we just talked about. And then also refinancing the 2015 debt that we took out to do some projects at the high school, the Horace Mann office, excuse me, and some work at Ben Franklin and some other security work across the district. So Jamie will go into more detail tonight, but I really just wanted to mention in a committee meeting prior to the full board meeting tonight. And then there is a motion to the full board tonight to vote just to allow PFM to go out to bid for the debt. It is not committing to do the refinancing because we wait and see what the results are on the bond bid. It is just really authorizing Jamie to move forward with it.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Julia, if you have anything,
I do.
this is in your wheelhouse.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do have it. Of the three bonds, you're talking the 2012, 13, and 15, the total outstanding on those right now is what? I don't have that sheet in front of me.
The total outstanding on those is they're all roughly right around $3 million. The 12 and 13 bond debts, they are set to be paid off in the next 2 to 3 years. But like I said, one is the 2012 is 2 more payments of 1.5. And then the 2013 is really broken up into roughly $1 million the next 3 years. And
Now,
then
we don't have any options to pay those off early, any of them, do we?
they're callable right now, so you could pay them off right now if you wanted to. Or they would be. The 2015 may be a little questionable. I don't know the exact date, but the 2012 and 13, we would be past our 5-year callable date. So you could pay them off if you wanted to.
Just thinking if you could arbitrage. Well, you're not allowed to arbitrage, but I was just thinking I don't know, with the rates the way they are, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future in the next year. They're so low right now. But I don't. What are we currently paying right now prior to this refinance?
It's really let me look it up here. Right around, there's 2.3, there's 2.2. So anywhere between 2% and looks like the highest we're paying on any of them is 2.5.
It'll be interesting what she quotes us tonight. Or I know it has to go out for bid, but it's interesting to see. Okay, I had one more question. Can't think of what it was now. Darn. Okay, I can't remember what I wanted to ask you, so I'll just forget.
It looks like she's quoting us somewhere around 1.65%.
Well, that's nice. Yeah. I'm just thinking with the ESCO opportunity perhaps and this opportunity, maybe to think outside the box. But I just remembered what it was. Oh, I thought that the savings was closer to 55,000 on if we refinance 3, not 60. 65's your 55's your net figure. Am I mistaken about that?
The net savings she has on here is 66,000, with the bulk of it coming this school year of 62, almost 63,000, and then there's a couple $100 over the next couple years, in each year.
Okay, I don't know if anybody else gets kind of where I'm going with that, but this is sort of, I feel like there's a little slim opportunity here to.
Yeah. I agree, Julia. It's something definitely we have to continue on this too.
Julia, this is Walter. That was why I was curious how those figures that Brian was banding about, how they actually would work, and which might be available from them to sort of help overall in the projects.
I mean,
Okay, anybody else have anything? Go ahead, Jared. Sorry.
This would be an opportunity to ask Jamie, if the board is looking at doing these ESCO projects and more of a value worth more than what we currently have in capital reserve or the bond proceeds, or if you didn't want to put the bond proceeds towards the ESCO projects, it would be an opportune time if you were looking or needed to borrow more money to do some of those projects, to wrap that in possibly with this refinancing, because you save on a lot of the issuing costs if you do it all at one time. So that's certainly a conversation we can have with Jamie.
I mean, you don't know what Congress is going to do after January 20th when the new president comes in. I just don't know. I don't, the rates, when you're saying she's looking at 1.65, that's pretty darn favorable to the borrower at this point. Although it could drop more with a bigger CARES Act, I don't know. But it's almost too much for me to think about one evening after hearing that, man. I'm like, wow, there's some opportunity here. So
Yeah. And I think mortgage rates are starting to go up. Last couple of weeks, they jumped up a little bit, even though they're very low yet. But okay, anything else there? Because we got to get through number 1 and 2 of non-agenda items in 15 minutes. So, Jared, White Township building use.
Yes, I believe Nick Raymond from White Township is on the meeting here, and he would like to talk to the board about some possible building use by the White Township for, I believe, their winter and spring programs. So I'll turn it over to Nick to talk to the board or to the committee.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Nick.
Okay. All right, thanks for having me. Yeah, basically what Jared said is correct. I know I met with you guys a couple times before, and we would be looking to potentially use what I have down is what I sent to Jared and Mike, will be the Indiana Junior High gym. And this is something we also used last winter for an adult volleyball pickup league. So the dates I have proposed would be starting in the end of January for a co-ed adult volleyball, and then in the spring would be in the beginning of March for potentially a men's pickup basketball and a women's pickup basketball. And I understand as we're going through similar things with our facilities, how COVID affects all that, and you'll have your own use of your facilities with your own teams potentially. I know the future is a little uncertain on what's going to be able to be used and not be used, but I thought we should start here by opening this conversation again. And I know back before COVID, we kind of had an agreement to free facility usage until this past June. We ended up not even running programs all summer anyway because of COVID, and we haven't had a need for them during the fall, which we did run programs at that point. So I guess we'd have to revisit the compensation or potential non-compensation aspect at that point as well.
Okay.
I don't know if
question?
I don't know if you guys have any questions or.
This is Walter. You kind of touched on it very briefly, but we were very concerned about the impacts of the COVID and how it may impact our facilities. I just want to be very, very clear that we may have to back out of, modify, change, whatever we agreed to here based on what we have to do with our facilities in order to comply with Department of Health and so on.
Yes, I would understand that. I know if things change quickly, it's the same kind of with us over the S&T Bank Arena where things seem to be moving day to day on what we can and can't do. Things have, at least until now, maybe have solidified a little bit on facility usage with about a month ago with the new percentages you were allowed to have inside a building. But yeah, I'd understand if you guys would have to move things around potentially.
Terry, I'd like to take a pulse of the board to see if there's any objection to first off continuing the agreement that we had with White Township. But the second question is, are we uncomfortable or comfortable with people coming into our junior high gym in the COVID world we're living in now? These are going to be outside people coming into the gym in the evening. We won't have kids around. Are we in favor or not of that?
Well, I'll start. Do you want to give your comment while your mic's open?
No.
Okay, Barb.
I am in favor of keeping the White Township agreement, but due to COVID, We should not have outside vendors in our building. And actually, I currently feel that our high risk and moderate sports programs should not be running at this time too.
Linda?
I don't see how we can keep an agreement with White Township if we're not going to let anybody use our buildings. I very strongly feel that we should not be having anybody outside in our buildings, whether they're there when the students are there or not. The numbers in this area are just going the wrong way. And to even consider something in January, I think is just, it's unthinkable. March, maybe, but at this point, I would say no. I'm absolutely not in favor of letting anybody use our buildings for anything.
Okay, thanks. Julia?
No, I agree with Barb and Cinda. I mean, I think it's really risky with the numbers going up to introduce new people in at this point, particularly with what just happened at East Pike. It's very concerning, to say the least.
Okay, thanks. Tamara?
Ditto what everybody else has said.
Okay, thank you. Tammy?
I completely agree with everyone else right now. It's just too iffy right now.
I guess we don't have to go any further, I guess. Tom or Walter?
Gary, I would like to jump in. I want to encourage Nick to do this kind of project, but I think where we are sitting right now, in danger of closing the whole district, that it's probably prudent not to be too optimistic about January. If a miracle happens between now and then, Nick, I'm certainly willing to revisit this. I just don't see how we're going to keep our buildings open with or without you. So I'm agreeing with the board. But I also want to encourage you to stay with it.
Right. We'll definitely keep the line of communication open. We'll keep it going. But thank you, Nick.
Yes,
Sorry
and
for the rushing through.
I totally understand what you guys are saying, and I just guess my question would be: is this something you guys would feel comfortable revisiting in the future? Maybe if there's a vaccine or numbers become under control, and maybe that's March, maybe that's April, maybe it's February. I mean, I don't know. And then I guess on top of that, we kind of left it at June, and maybe this is a conversation we bring back in a couple of months, but could we have this conversation again when we see numbers maybe going down, and then talk the financial side of potentially using your facilities again once COVID seems to be a little more
that's
under control?
what we're saying, Nick. And yes, and we have to move on the agenda because it has to be done by 6:15. But yeah, we'll keep the line open. Things change. Walter, did you want to say anything quickly?
Yeah, very quickly, Nick. I want to echo Tom's remarks about really wanting you to be successful here. But I think this is really all about the numbers. And so rather than set a specific timeline as to when we would revisit it, we can certainly do that as a way of just kind of keeping track of it. But really, I think it's all going to depend on where the numbers are as far as the COVID infection rate and how it's impacting our district will really determine what, when the board's really ready to take another look at this.
Well, thank you, Walter, for saying that, and Tom as well. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. We're on to number 2, the East Pike roof replacement update. I wanted to keep this on a little bit of time for this because there's a sweet spot of when we should bid projects, and it's actually November and December. So we sort of, we have missed that. But, we don't want to bid this roof project. We'd like to bid it no later than the end of January and definitely no later than the end of February because then we'll be paying more money for it. So, Greg, I think you were going to give a quick explanation here.
Yes, Mr. Carr. I think we just we kind of brought forward. We had brought in some I guess, bids or quotes back in the spring from the statewide bids that are available to the district. But I think the board was looking to kind of do an actual formal bid, which is, takes us out of the state bid process, and where we actually have to provide bid documents, bid for 3 weeks, or have them available or advertise, I guess, for 3 separate weeks, and actually do a formal bid opening. What we are requesting is, or actually seeking, is to make sure that's still the direction the board wants to go, even with the ESCO option. And if that is, we can go out and start to get quotes for engineers who can help us put those bid documents together, because we don't have those bid documents available to us. We don't have anything put together. So if the committee would like us to do that, we can start to solicit proposals from engineers, which we can come back possibly at the December board meeting and seek approval on that. And then we can have the engineers starting to get those bid documents, or help us get those bid documents together.
And we talked before about bidding it, but then we could not award those contracts if the state contract price was lower, right?
Yes, we can always put a clause in the bid documents that the board has, can choose to, and we typically do in any of our bids, to reject the bids for any reason. So, if there's additional costs that will come along with bidding that out, and advertising is not the biggest one, the engineer would be the biggest one. But again, we have, it would be really a third option of how to price this East Pike roof, between state bids, doing our own bids, and then the ESCO project as well. And the price could be $10,000-15,000 to engage an engineer.
Yeah. And Brian's still on the phone here. We talked about also, the ESCO part of this. And that's why I mentioned earlier about maybe we would do this one separate, but maybe, like Brian mentioned, we could combine some things with this, I guess. I didn't think about that. But I guess we got to decide, do we want to try and do this roof next summer? And if we do, then we have to get busy on this.
Terry, we definitely want to look at the roof next for construction next summer, but I think with Brian's input tonight that we should take a deep breath and see what he can do. The ESCO did all the roofs under the ESCO that were done, and it was pretty successful. So I think we should just put this on the table for a little bit, let Brian get his feet underneath him and see what he can get it done for us.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with this, whether Brian could, I guess, Brian, can you put this bid package together? And I don't want to put it on the table, Tom.
I'm not saying putting it on the table. I'm just saying give Brian a chance to get his act together. We clearly can include roofing and insulation under the ESCO, and we have very good control. And
we could do both.
Well, the one's going to cost us $15,000, and Brian's not.
Okay, I see what you're saying, but still, I don't want to wait because I think time is of the essence. I don't want to. I mean, I would think this could be done pretty quickly. Both on Brian, Mr. Townsend, I don't know, but I hope so.
Brian, you're still on here, right?
Yes, I am. I just unmuted. After tonight's meeting, I'm going to have some discussions internally as it relates to workload, things of that nature. So I'm going to have an internal discussion tomorrow. I'll circle back with administration. When I heard January, February sweet spot, we are November. I am not committing to for the company yet. The operations folks commit the timelines, but I feel there's an ability to push for potentially a February resolution surrounding some things that may make sense. A lot of that may hinge on your discussion with PFM this evening and the direction the board takes for as to how things are structured. But we're here to work with you.
Okay, and I could tell from your early presentation, you definitely are willing to work with us. So we'll put this on next month's agenda. If you would have your internal meeting and then get back to Jared, and he can share with us, the outcome of that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this? Because if not, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, we can push off. Because I think we wanted more time for our next meeting.
Brian, I didn't know if it's possible to possibly give us an idea what it costs for the Ben Franklin roof. Kind of go for a square foot idea, what we paid back then, what we current price for today. That might give us a rough idea how close we are currently.
I'll make a note and ask. Yeah, I'll make a note and ask when I get that meeting scheduled. Like I said, hopefully tomorrow. If not, I'll try and get it Wednesday in the morning before I'm in buildings all day afternoon. Wednesday, Thursday. All right. Yep. I'll make a note on that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Anything else for the good of the order?
Terry,
Yeah.
real quick, number 3, how close are they to being done? Real close, not close at all, just, that's all I want to know.
Okay, we were very
Greg?
close. They're working on the punch list items. They just redid the tile and we approved their tiles. So we're looking and the chairlift that's been approved. So we're looking at going through for a second look at as far as what they've done as far as their punch list items. So we should be very close.
So by the end of the year, it'll be done.
I'm hoping it's done before the second week or first week of, I better say second week of December.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. That's all.
Anything else? Anybody has any questions on that? Can't wait.
Terry, what about the bipolarization?
Greg and Jared, they don't have enough information available for tonight anyway.
Okay,
The contractors, Greg has been reaching out to the contractors, but as you know, they're busy. And Greg, do you want to add anything, or Jared?
Yeah, part of what we have to have the information for them. We either have to go room by room and check each serial number and model number of the units so they know the correct sizes that they have to quote us for, or we have to be able to pull it off from another source. So that's what's going to take some time. We have to go building by building, unit by unit.
Greg, this is Walter. Is there not any way we can get at least a budget number out of these guys? And you know, some little more meat on the bones here to kind of talk about how this actually works and the effectiveness and the advantage, and then give us a ballpark number of what they think it would take, whether it's by square foot or by room or by building. I think we really need to have something along those lines here fairly. I mean, we've been sort of trying to get this information. I don't want to get so hung up on the details that it takes forever, when maybe this is something that would, be helpful in keeping our buildings open. So is there not any way we can get some ballpark numbers from them?
I don't have those numbers with me right now, but I did provide those a couple meetings ago, I think it was, what they thought a ballpark was. I wish I did have that information with me. I did not look it back up again.
I'm sorry if I missed it. If you would, please resend that out whenever you can, and maybe we can move it forward that way.
Okay.
Walter,
And Brian,
Walter,
does it would this be covered under the ESCO any way, shape, or form?
We are evaluating COVID mitigation, including bipolar ionization for a number of clients for consideration under the next CARES funding. Yes.
Greg, we've been after this for several months now. I'm beyond interested in what the cost would be in each of the nurses' suites and each of the cafeterias. It's 12 rooms that I'm particularly interested in, where kids are having their mask. Or this won't do us any good to solve this in 2022. So if there's anything we can do to move this ahead, I'm certainly encouraging to get it done.
I've already ordered ones for the 3 nurses stations. I believe it's 3. I think it's Eisenhower, Ben Franklin, Horace Mann. We're waiting for those to come in. I think those were close to 4,000 a piece.
What about the junior high and high school?
Theirs are connected to air handlers, so that's completely different. The reason we're getting the other ones are because they are not bringing the outside air in. That's why we're going to use the self-contained units. The other ones that would have to be connected to the air handlers. So we're going to need to know exact size, how many CFM it's going out, because that's how those are based on sizes.
I understand that. I just, it's 2 machines. Let's try to get it done.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Are you authorizing me to just go ahead and purchase the ones for the cafeterias as well?
I certainly can't do that on my own, but that's where we're most vulnerable, where we have kids with masks off. So I think it's the cafeterias and maybe the gyms.
Could you get us those numbers, say for our first meeting in December there, Greg, so the board could take action on it then if need be?
Definitely. That'd be very simple.
Okay. Thank you. We'll see you all at the next meeting.